Hey everybody, welcome to episode 24 of Making It. I'm Bob Clagett. Jimmy just ripped one.
I'm Jimmy Diresta, using my chair. No, I fed my dog 1 second before we started, and I just looked around on the floor to see where he was, and he's laying over here sleeping because it's 100 degrees here. I thought he was dead, so I just reacted, moved my chair to make sure and that sound woke him up. So, hello everybody.
My dog is upstairs. He just hangs out upstairs all day, and so I have the air conditioner running upstairs just for the dog.
Yeah,
Nice.
That's what I need. I need to get one.
Yeah.
Or you just bring the dog downstairs.
He gets too anxious. All he does is he'll run around in circles, and then he stands by the upstairs door saying, "Hey, let me back upstairs. I want to go to sleep." I'm like, "Come on."
Wow.
Yeah, he's real anxious when he's downstairs.
I'm demanding for a dog. Well, anyway, welcome to episode 24. I'm Bob Clagett with squeaky Jimmy Diresta here and David Picciuto. And
this is Real Talk with Jimmy,
yeah.
Bob, and Dave.
Yeah, odd sounds with the guys from Making It. Now, this episode's sponsored by Inventables, so I want to say thanks to them. If you don't know about Inventables, go to inventables.com and check them out. They have all sorts of awesome materials and machines, and something I saw that they're beta testing right now, which I think is super cool. So they have some software called Easel, and it's for running CNC machine in the browser, which it's great software by itself, but they're adding an app store to it. And so
cool.
they're putting out a thing right now for developers to be able to make apps to run within the easel.
Nice.
And so I think there's some really awesome stuff that's going to come out of that, to make the CNC machines even more useful and be able to generate some. Like one of the things that they had on the tweet that I saw was where you could import a photo and it would trace the photo, make G-code out of it, and cut it, which is
nice.
Oh, wow, that's great.
That's pretty awesome. So, yeah, thanks to Inventables. You go check them out at inventables.com. And, so let's get rolling. What's everybody working on?
Well, speaking of Inventables, I am working on my guitar, which is going to be CNC based. I'm doing a lot of testing right now. If you've never made a guitar, the neck has to fit into the body really snug. So I'm carving out in test pieces, trying to get that fit just perfect. So working on the guitar.
Did you buy a neck or are you making a neck?
Oh, I totally cheated. And guitar nerds, as Jimmy would call them, are probably going to get on me. So I bought a $120 Epiphone Les Paul Jr. And I just gutted it. So I played around with it for 15 minutes and said, okay, you're done. And then just tore it all apart. And it was just cheaper to use all the parts from this whole guitar than it was to buy everything separate. And it has
especially since you're getting started and it's your first one. And that's what I did.
I did not want to make a neck. That's some advanced stuff. So we're just making the body.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I just finished up my bar cart today, which actually is for a fan online, and she's going to pick it up this week. And I'm excited because that video will be ready and it'll be up this Sunday. And I'm excited also, if you guys noticed on Instagram, I picked up this old pickup truck and I was able to tear into it and get the back off. So I'm excited. I got that project started upstate, and that's going to be fun project. And turning the bed of that truck into a display for George Dickel whiskey.
What's going to happen to the rest of the truck?
Well, I was a little bit selfish in my search. I found a truck that matches mine because I have the same body style. It's a couple of years older, but mine is in very, very good shape. And I was a little skeptical about it when I first got it, but until I got this one, which is literally a giant pile of rust. I was playing around trying to start it, and my foot literally went through the floor. So there's a big hole right where your heel would be.
Flintstones.
Yeah. So now in retrospect, now that I have something to compare my original 69 to, this completely rusty 72, mine is like a brand new car. So I have a newfound respect for my old car that I've owned previous to this one. But David Welder and I are going to play around with it. We're going to use it for some videos. Right at the moment, it doesn't have any spark, so I'm trying to work backwards and try and figure out why. It hasn't run in about 18 years. But the bed project is the priority, so getting it running is secondary. And so I'm going to definitely have some more videos coming up out of this particular project. whether it be the bed of the truck itself, which I started, or the getting the thing running. And then what I think I'm going to do is I planned a video of making over the bench seat in my 69. So I'm going to pull the seat out of this 72 and use that as the basis. And once that's ready with all the cow skin on it and everything, I'm going to swap it back into the 69.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Yeah, so it's a good project to supplement some other projects as well. And then if this bed build goes well and this truck bed display goes well, they might order more. So I'm real excited about that. So
Nice.
Awesome.
yeah.
Well, I had some new videos go up on Make Magazine today.
Awesome.
A table that I worked on. It's like 2 wooden slabs connected by epoxy with LED lights under them. So that I'm happy that that's finally online. I did that quite a while ago.
It's a really cool project.
Oh, thanks.
Awesome
Thanks.
effect. Yeah.
Thanks. It's pretty fun to show off to people when they come over, but that's about it. But
Do you leave it on at night?
No, we turn it off because it's got a cable, it's got a cord going to it, power cord. And with kids, it's just not, it'll get pulled out if we leave it plugged in. So we only plug it in to show people. But other than that, I just finished up some raised dog bowls, which doesn't sound very interesting. And I don't know that it is, but it was something that we needed. So we have 2 dogs, 2 labs. So we made 3 bowls of shared water and then 2 food bowls and raised them up to the right height so they don't have to lean down. And made the legs out of walnut. And you probably saw the picture that I put up where I put pocket holes in solid walnut. I know. Don't hate me.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm probably going to hear some flack for that. But it's like a flat frame, leg. And that's probably... And the width of them made it so that doing biscuits or something like that just wouldn't work. So it was actually probably one of the simplest ways to get them together. But anyway, that's done, and I'm pretty happy with it. And working on a bunch of other stuff. I got a lot going on right now. But
Yeah. That's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Are you happy to be busy?
I am happy to be busy. It's nice. Yeah. I mean, I was busy before, but it's nice to be busy with stuff that I definitely want to do.
Right.
So,
Because now this is all you do.
yeah. Pretty awesome.
Does that make you happy? I'm introducing the subject for the day.
Yes, he is. Go ahead and introduce it officially. How about that?
I'm just playing around. The subject for today is what makes us happy. Somebody tweeted that, and it's also a question that we've each individually got. So while we were talking about it, we said, hey, let's make that today's subject. What makes us happy? And I think, needless to say, what makes us happy is making good, fun, successful videos. Along that road, there's always bumps in that road, setbacks and minor things that don't make us happy when things aren't, successful in their own little world. But what makes us happy is making, creating, figuring out, developing new ideas. That moment, that spark, that one moment where you'd be in the middle of doing something else, like maybe mowing the lawn, and then all of a sudden you have a really good idea for something new and you can't wait to get back to the shop and get started on it. Like for me this week, what made me happy more than anything was tearing the bed off that truck and digging into that old car. I mean, that looks just like a pile of junk to most people, but I couldn't have been more happy digging into that. I have this spot on my property I call it the back lot. It's like my own little personal junkyard, or at least that's what it's turning into. And so as long as all the grass is grown and you can't see it from the backyard where I actually mow the grass, it's that makes me happy that nobody can see it and that they get to play in there. So the various things that make us happy, we're going to discuss. So,
All right.
Bob, you had the stage a minute ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm really happy that I'm able to do what I want to do right now. I know that the majority of people are in a place where they have to do things that they don't want to do to survive, and to make ends meet and everything. And so I'm really blessed to be able to choose what I do. And there's tons of factors that go into that. But I think that's one of the biggest things is just having the freedom. One of the biggest things that's making me happy right now is having the freedom to spend the time on my family that I want, and to spend the time in the shop that I want to do, and, to be able to pursue all this stuff that is relatively new to me, in the last couple of years. When you have a career, I mean, David knows this, when you have a career that's in one place and then you leave that entire side of your life, and you go somewhere else, and to have the opportunity and to have the backing and the support to do that, to shift entirely. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy that I'm in a position to be able to chase some new stuff now.
I think sometimes change makes me happy. So doing that complete career shift from being a web developer to doing what I do now made me crazy happy. And just woodworking in general, I've been doing that for 4 years or so, and that's always made me happy. And I'm always discovering new things that make me happy, getting feedback from people, whether it's online or family members or whatever. So
I always tell my students, you guys just reminded me of something. I always tell my students that when you create something, do you ever have that moment, and I've said it in interviews, so I might have said it here before, like, do you ever have that moment where, like, you just can't wait the minute you wake up, you can't wait to run back to your shop and see that thing you made? I love that feeling. And I used to have it much more often when I was, like, in my 20s. Now I'm in my 40s, and that happens, a couple times a year. And when it happens, it's super exciting. Like, to be able to, like, wake up and you go, like, nothing else matters. You want to just run and see that thing that you're, like, halfway through, or maybe that you just completed. It's fantastic.
It's such an awesome feeling. You just sit there and you look at it, and then 5 minutes go by and you're like, I'm still looking at this thing. What am I doing?
You've had that feeling, right? You know what I mean, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's what I tell my students. You want to create something that gives you that feeling. Like, you don't want to, and I get it less and less often now, I guess, because maybe I'm jaded, or I'm older, or I've had it so many times, developing my skills and developing what I do. Like nowadays, like, if I finish something and I'm really happy with it, I'm like, okay, cool, what's next? And, like, I just move on, mentally. I'm like, okay, the next thing, this one's put to bed, what's next? But every once in a while, like, for instance, like, I had it with that compact case, that little compact case I made recently, because there was so many little moments of discovery in that. And that kind of reminded me of back when I was a kid, when I would just play around in my dad's shop and just, like, solder things together and drill and cut and just experiment. I mean, I never made that compact case before, and that was a request from a YouTube fan. And I said, all right, let me give it a shot. And I came up with a couple of unusual ways of attempting it, and I tried it. And it came out good. I mean, it's definitely, it probably is a little fragile. But again, I'm just experimenting with my skills and just playing around with the idea of how to approach something differently. So when I did that, the next day, the first thing I did is I woke up and I came into my office and I opened it up to make sure that it didn't fall apart. And it didn't. So it's in good shape. But it's fun. It's those things that make me really happy. And
so I'm curious.
The moments of discovery.
I'm curious about, you said that doesn't happen as often for you anymore. Do you think that has anything, and maybe it doesn't, do you think that has anything to do with the fact that a lot of the stuff you do now is commission work for corporate clients? Do you think that has any bearing in it? It's like less of you and more of them, or not?
Maybe so. But I'm actually, another thing I'm working on, I did mention, I'm doing a city skyline of Nashville. It's called Nashville Skyline. Of course, Nashville Skyline, the Dickel sign. So it's the Nashville Skyline cut out of aluminum, and it's got the cityscape and the word Dickel across it. It's for an installation in a bar in Nashville. And I'm getting a little vibe from that. I'm starting to like it. But when I started on it, I was like, ugh. But now I'm getting into it, and I'm digging it, and I'm developing the next few steps. That's also going to be a video. But I'm starting to like it. And when I start to like it, I start to get that feeling, which is cool. But when I have to build like 10 bars for Don Julio, it's all very clinical. Especially when, like, again, talk about corporate clients. When I'm working on it, there's 10 people telling me how they want it to be. I basically just become a conduit just to literally excrete what everybody wants, and then I get paid well to do it. So I want to run and see the check. That makes me smile, as opposed to run and see the product.
But yeah, I mean, I wondered, because I was curious about that, because, as people start to make videos and have to fund it, like we often run to sponsors, or we run to whatever. And as soon as you take money from them, you work for them to a degree, whatever the degree that is. And so I've already seen a little bit in my short history of doing this full time that my attitude toward what I'm making changes a little bit if it's sponsored. Not to the degree where it's like, I really don't like this because somebody else is paying me, because I don't allow myself to work with people that are that invasive. But there is a difference between saying like, I have to do this project, even if it's something I wanted to do, and there is even the smallest amount of approval that has to be had from
That's
somebody
it.
else.
Yeah, it's like
you know?
working with complete freedom when you're working on your own, and then when
Yeah.
it's like working with a group, even if it's just one sponsor or one person that represents that sponsorship, and you want your approval and stuff. So it definitely takes that like super fun excitement out of it. But
Yeah.
when you get a groove and you're with a good group of people, that certainly helps. I mean, a lot of my Dickel people is super nice, and my Bullet guys, I mean, I love them to death. They become my closest friends. So that makes it all very rewarding too. Is that if you're working with good people, nothing is worse than trying to get the right color with somebody, and they're like, it's just a little, and then you want to just literally say, here's your deposit back. You could leave, take the wood with you. You could have it for free.
But when you please them, that's another form of happiness too. So when you're doing these projects, if you're building something for somebody or it's a sponsored project, and at the end they're like, "That was awesome, thank you so much." That's such a great feeling.
Oh no, absolutely. That's what I was saying. Like my Bullet guys, I mean, they become close friends, and like we're all working together to a common goal. That's great. Like when there's people you love and that appreciate what you do, and you appreciate them. I mean, that's definitely a great feeling when you work in a group that works together well.
Yeah.
But like as far as corporate goes, the fun could be removed when there's like that stick in the mud that just is never satisfied. And then when you watch them order lunch, when you're in that same group and you see they can't decide what they want for lunch, you realize it's not you, it's them. Because in the same instance, they can't decide what color they want to give you for your thing. They can't decide whether they want turkey. And then you realize like every decision in their life is like that. And unfortunately, they're the gatekeeper for your success in this particular project. So those are the type of things you kind of just slowly walk away from.
What part of
that's working for yourself. That's you got to deal with that.
In the middle of a big project, what part of that project makes you the happiest?
Finishing it. Yeah, and then looking back and seeing the appreciation. I was thinking too when we were kind of pondering the subject. And again, this is kind of outside. This is more for the YouTubers that are listening. It's like the minute you hit publish, does your heart race a little bit?
Oh yeah,
Still, the minute you click that button, like my videos are always private for a couple days before I make them public, and I'm like, I'll be eating dinner with Tal. I'm like, I think it's time to make that video public. So I'll go to the computer and I'll bring up the analytics thing and the video manager, and I'll hit public, and I literally, my heart races as it happens every single time, because now it's like I'm literally like whipping my robe off to the whole world.
There's been a couple of times where I've published the video, but then I have to run off to somewhere else, and I can't respond or I can't view the first comments coming in, and that drives me nuts, and I can't be present in what I'm doing until I get back and I'm able to read all those comments.
But I really love that moment too. I mean, that's sort of that same excitement that I was talking about before. So as far as like, my current work situation, that's one of the moments where I really like, I know like I've done the best in this video, given the circumstances and whatever it is, and whatever went into that video, I hit publish and there you go. And, you just hope for the best.
I'm a big fan. I'm finishing a project and looking back at it makes me happy, but I really, really love the design process. I love just like sitting down with a cup of coffee or a beer at the computer or at a drawing pad and just drawing and sketching. That's just so satisfying to me. I really love that part of the project.
Yeah,
That's funny.
Totally. I agree.
It's funny how different all three of us are in so many ways, but in like this particular thing, because for me, I really like having things finished because, and the only reason I really am happy about that part is because I get to move on to the next thing. But within a project, I think the part that I enjoy the most and get the most out of is being stuck somewhere in the middle and being like, I don't know how that, like I'm working towards something. I don't know how that thing's actually going to work yet. And I haven't really thought enough about it. Mm-hmm. You get to it, you're stuck. And then all of a sudden you get that like, oh,
the breakthrough.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And then and then things just start to kind of snowball and it moves really quickly from there.
Yeah.
I love that feeling of like, okay, now it's go time. Now things are moving in the right direction.
Well, that's what I did my little TED Talk about last May was the breakthroughs. And, I learned that from a really, one of the most influential people in my life, my friend Bob, who's since passed away. He was an older gentleman. Bob Carrigan was an inventor and a toy designer. And he was the first person to talk about breakthroughs with me when I was a student. He came in as a lecturer in one of my classes when I was at School of Visual Arts, and then subsequently he and I actually became very close friends. And he taught me the whole process of breakthroughs 25 years ago, and like that moment where you set yourself up to get that breakthrough and the things you need to do, like basically when I did my breakthrough conversation on my TEDx talk, it was a lot of what I was saying was what Bob Clagett taught me, and that is, you need to feed your brain to have those breakthroughs, and you need to challenge. Like if you're coming across something you've never come across, you need to kind of just ponder it, and eventually you'll get that breakthrough. And those breakthroughs are definitely another thing that falls into the category of boom. Oh man, that is so cool! I can't believe I just allowed myself to figure that out. I gave myself I primed my brain. I spent enough time tinkering, and now all of a sudden these ideas are starting to come to me without so much effort.
Yeah.
And that's really what comes from experience.
There's been so many times in the middle of a project where I hit that wall, or I come to a problem, and it's so frustrating. And I sometimes I allow myself to get too frustrated. But then when you have that breakthrough, when you do the problem solving, there's that moment of happiness that makes all that frustration so worth it.
Yeah,
because usually it's something that you're going to learn and then carry on to a future project.
Yeah. Do you guys, when you're looking at, I mean, I know this is probably different per project, but when you're looking at something, you're trying to design or prepare all the mechanics or whatever it is, how much of that stuff do you pre-solve, or how much of it do you leave to mid-project?
Most of the time, I like to have everything solved at the beginning, so I can kind of flow through the project. I don't really enjoy going into a project with too many unknowns, because I don't want I kind of want to know when the project's going to end, and when there's unknowns, that really throws the timeline way off.
Well, I have a different approach. I just get started. I'm like, the solution's going to come to me. So I just jump into a project and begin. Like the skyline, for instance, which I haven't talked about much yet. I started making the skyline, and I wasn't quite sure where it was going. But like now that I'm into it, I'm starting to see some results. Not literally see results, but feel results. Know, okay, now I have a better direction. But I literally was trying to design it on paper, and I did a couple sketches, and I was just like, it's not coming to me. And so I let it go, and I started making, I knew I had to at least make the skyline. So I started working on the bits and pieces that make up the skyline. It's going to be the Nashville skyline with the George Dickel logo across it, but the textures, the combined textures, is going to be kind of the special feature for it. And I go, most projects I go into it just like a little tiny pencil sketch, and then I'm like, oh. But that just goes back to experience, just knowing like when I'm in the middle of a project, the index in my brain of the thousands of other things I've done, literally since I'm a little kid, start like flashing before my eyes. I'm like, oh, this is like the time when I did this with my dad, and this is like the time I helped do that. So all these little things come back to me. I mean, thankfully my brain is still quite clear, and I can think. How people have that total recall when they could say like, what happened 10 years ago, they remember the weather on that day. I have that recall when it comes to like all the projects I've done and like the different things, and the way I've solved problems. So I have that whole index in my brain of like, oh, this is just like the time me and my brother Joey made that toy, and we made this, and we invented this, and such a. So I have all these little tiny reference points in my head. And
how often does that, or does it ever come back to bite you mid-project, to where you've jumped into it and you get to a point and you go, oh, I really should have started, doing it this way at the very beginning or something like that?
Oh, no, it's a really good question. Yeah, it has happened, but it doesn't happen often. I mean, It has happened, and sometimes you kind of trudge on through and you've made a bad decision and you stick to it. And, it's kind of, I hate to keep talking about it. That one project I talked about when we were on stage, that's like the thing that haunts me the most, is like I made all these metal cabinets with glass, and I just didn't have enough. I jumped into it too soon without thinking through. And I also just didn't have enough physical space to execute it accurately. And, so that was just that kind of lingers as one of the things I wish I would have done differently. But when you have a failure like that, and it wasn't a failure, they still have all the cabinets in the house. It just wasn't up to the way I expected it to come out. And again, like I talked about expectations, and that's the big problem. It's not necessarily failures, but it's expectations. They said, oh, I thought it was going to be this, I thought it was going to be that. But you go away from a project like that knowing better how you should prepare next time. And a lot of the stuff I do is when it's fairly simple stuff like signage and that kind of thing. That's when I can go into it. But when I'm talking about like hanging something on someone's wall, of course I want to make sure that that's all thought through properly. Yeah. And I'll do some research if need be on the proper way to do it, and do some calculations. I'm not an engineer by any chance, but I mean I am definitely an engineer with experience in the world. So I know, what screws and fasteners will work. So again, I reference all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I tend to overthink projects at the beginning. And I think through spending more time doing this in the last couple of years, I've gotten better about that. Not overthinking it to the point where it's like I'm wasting time thinking instead of doing.
Yeah.
But I do spend the majority of the time trying to pre-solve problems. But on occasion, there's stuff that I can't get my head around, and I'm getting better about being okay with not having it all figured out. And that's just purely a personality thing, I think. But
yeah,
I'm getting better at like leaving this one little pocket of I don't know right there, and I'm going to figure it out. Mid-project, and as long as it's not super interconnected to everything else within a project, that's okay. That it's all right to have those things that are not load bearing, that you can figure out. And
how's the saying go? Don't let perfection get in the way of progress.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
The another thing, just to change it up a little bit, the one thing that I realized that lately makes me super happy is being able to work outside with the sun up and the grass under my feet. I've been doing that upstate a lot this summer, and I've been actually doing more projects upstate than I have in recent years. And it's just logistics, and eventually, if I ever get my shop built up there, I'll be up there full time. But I'm trying to think of more excuses and more reasons to be upstate lately. And of course, the truck project is happening in my backyard. I can't do it in the city basement. But it's that's definitely, a goal is to work outside more often. It's just so nice to just be upstate in the country. I mean, if you guys saw my mowing the lawn video, that's literally where I work, next to that little White House. And it's just nice. And I can go out there at 1 a.m. and blast heavy metal and just make something, and no one's going to bang on the floor because there's nobody around me. And that's another, I could weld and blow torch and do all kinds of cool stuff. And it's just something I want to get to much more often than working in the city. So it's just something.
Sounds pretty
future.
Awesome. Speaking of, I saw a picture that you put up of your action figure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It looked awesome. What's the status there?
That made me happy.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's a resin cast figure. We're trying to figure out the mathematics. The Four Horsemen is the group that made it. They did an excellent job on the sculpt. The paint job came back, and the paint job wasn't so great. So we're going to work on getting the paint job ready for the little video that that's going to accompany my pitch. And so instead of trying to literally raise money to sell them, we're going to just pre-sell them. And if we sell enough of them, then we'll make them. And that's kind of what's going to happen. But I've been also postulating and thinking about maybe doing a proper Kickstarter for, maybe raising money for my barn. I met some guys out in San Francisco with you guys. And this one particular person gave me some really good ideas. And, he does that for a living. And so he said he would consult with me when the time was right for that. So I'm trying to avoid having to take a mortgage out, just because it's such a pain in the butt dealing with a bank. And so that's what I'm doing. And so the action figure thing, I keep calling it an action figure. It's really just a resin cast. We'll see. I honestly feel a little funny about it because it really wasn't my idea. Taylor and Carlos came up with the idea. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm not really... do I warrant a resin cast figure? But if I just pretend to live up to it, maybe I would. I don't.
Can you play with resin cast figures in the bathtub?
You could, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're cool then.
I'll make sure the paint is, oil based. Yeah. So Carlos is the man behind the man on this particular project, and Carlos suggested we try and sell a couple that don't have paint on them.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. That would be a good idea.
And so it was his idea as well. And then when I put up those two figures, a lot of fans, a few people mentioned it too. So we'll see where it goes. Like I said, I'm still feeling a little awkward about the whole idea. And it's like I feel like, when there's like a bunch of people behind stage and then like the one person gets shoved out into behind the curtain and then he's like standing in front of a bunch of people. That's kind of how I feel about this. Like I wasn't 100% feeling it. And then all of a sudden, Carlos and Taylor are like, "No, go do it. And so now I'm doing it. And so I'm going to see it through. And I'm just waiting on the next. We're waiting for a sculpt to be painted so that it looks really good.
I think I totally understand what you mean about feeling odd about that. But I think the stranger thing would be if you were like, you know what? everybody wants an action figure of me, and I'm going to go figure out how to make that happen. Then people would look at you and be like, what? That's kind of,
That's what people are going to look at this and see, because not everyone hears this. I'm sure, and I also have my detractors on YouTube. They're going to think I'm a complete jerk. So
yeah. Well, the good thing is that it's it's a vehicle to help you build a bigger shop. So and
that's what sold me on it. I'm not just trying to sell an action figure because I think people really want me. I think people want to help me. At least I hope people want me.
Yeah.
And this is one way that I can give somebody something that's unique. Like whenever I give something that's like in air quotes, like a piece of art, and that's what I might consider this. I always say I hope that it's worth a lot more money one day than it is right now, and that I'm kind of like you hear about these guys that like hung out with Basquiat, and he like scribbled on a piece of paper and gave them that piece of paper, and now the thing is worth so many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I always hope that when I give somebody a piece of art, that maybe one day it'll be worth more than whatever it is they may have paid for it. So that's what I'm hoping for.
You'll have to die first before.
I hope so. Or I could be lucky like Picasso and live up to it. But who knows what's in store for each one of us. But
well, having a resin cast of Jimmy Diresta will make me happy. How about that?
Oh, thank you. You guys are making me blush.
So go ahead, Dave.
No, I was gonna take a left turn here, so I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, no, I'm interested in left turns.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So in order for us to do what we do, as far as being on camera and doing this podcast, you kind of have to be a happy person. Mm-hmm. Because if we went into this in the wrong mood, it wouldn't be very fun for the other guys in the podcast. Wouldn't be very fun for the listeners. So there's a lot of things that influence happiness, and I want to know if you guys want to get into a little bit of what makes you happy outside the career, because that does influence what you build. So outside of making stuff, outside of making videos, outside of maybe even family, because that's an easy answer. What things make you happy?
My pets.
Yes.
Long drives.
Ooh, not me.
No way. That sounds awful.
No, I like going for long car rides. That's fun for me, and seeing things, because like when I like the way a dog looks out the window. I'm driving and I'm like looking at all the little visual input as I drive, and it's kind of like I like being surprised, so that makes me happy. Good surprises, and when the UPS man comes. And I'm like, wait, I don't remember ordering anything. That's checks in the mailbox. That's always super cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. When I go upstate and my house hasn't been robbed because it sits empty for a while, that always makes me happy.
Yeah. For me, music and photography, my two other hobbies, make me
music,
happy.
I love music.
Yeah, music, not so. Music, I've kind of detached myself from music the last maybe a year or so, but every once in a while I'll still sit down and I'll record a song or whatever, and that makes me happy. Technology makes me happy. I'm a kind of a
discovery.
Discovery. So I'm gonna a new camera for photography, not for video. That always makes me happy, and then it always inspires me to go out and take photos and be creative. So Bob.
Yeah, I think it's easy to say that family is an easy answer, and I guess it is, but having family or being around family is an easy answer. But when you have kids, there's so much more to the interaction that you have with them, like on a daily basis. Some of it is awful. Some of the interaction that you have to have with your children to discipline them is awful as a parent. It's just stuff you have to do for their own benefit. But then when you see them, make good choices that like they finally understood like the importance of doing the right thing, that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you see them really grab onto something that they all of a sudden love, that's really amazing. And so, it's easy to wrap it all in one big box and say that's an easy answer. But some of the things stick out a lot more, that they're really gratifying to see, like the, several years of correction that you've put into these kids, or like whatever the case is, like all this, because you have to work to try to get them to understand how important it is to be what they should be, and for their benefit, not for yours. And so that's a lot of work. And so when you see that start to pay off, it's pretty amazing. Like recently, my kids are all pretty hands-on, and they all make a lot of Lego stuff and they draw and things like that, here and there, not an especially large amount. But recently, they started watching some new kids show, and it's all about art. And so in every episode, it's a cartoon, but then they show these actual kids making a piece of art, and they walk through the process, and it's crafty, finger painting and like gluing and stuff like that. But all of a sudden, all of my kids want to make art. And it's not like a day thing. It's like we want to make art all the time. So the other day I took the three boys to the art store, and we went down the aisles, and I said, hey, pick out some stuff, whatever you want. And they're like, pipe cleaners, googly eyes, whatever, all this stuff, and glitter glue and all this. And since then, it's been every single day. Can we go make art? Can we go make art? Yes, you can go make art. Go get stuff out of the recycle bin. Go get the glitter glue and just make stuff. And that's really cool because they saw something somewhere, and they've all really attached to it right now. And they're doing something that's like, it's not guided. It's not, it's not like I'm saying, hey, go make a dragon. It's like they just want to go make something. And a lot of times it's nothing, and it doesn't turn into anything, and it gets thrown away. But they're pursuing something that they're passionate about right now, and it may not be that in 2 weeks. But anyway, so there's stuff like that just seeing sparks in them, that stuff makes me really happy. And old stuff. I really like old stuff.
Yeah. Explain that more.
Too. Yeah.
So I love going to I don't know how to say this tactfully, old people's houses.
Right.
I don't mean that in a negative. Yeah, like like going to my they know I'm there. Yeah, no, like going to my grandparents' house and like looking at the stuff that they've had in their house. That was just stuff, nothing special, not antiques, but just the stuff that they've held on to for 40, 50 years. And you look at that, and in and of itself, it's nothing. It's an old matchbook that is from the 50s or something. But something about looking at things like that, old moments in time from like an entirely different era that have just survived somehow and just kind of are there. I don't know. I love that stuff. And like, I'm not real into like the preserved antiques. I mean, that stuff's cool, I guess, but I just like the little common stuff that is just old and just kind of was part of someone's life at some point. I don't know.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Similar to what you just mentioned about watching the discovery within your kids, it's extremely gratifying when you teach a group of students something, and then you see some of the things that you're talking about actually start to take hold. And that's, on a similar level. I could totally see that with my students when they come back to me a year later and they're like, hey, take a look at what I did. And it's very similar to something that we discussed, 18 months before in class. And, so I realize that some of the things I'm saying are actually making a difference in some people's lives. And that's extremely gratifying, and that really makes me happy. And on a similar comparison with old things, I like old rusty things. Old rusty heavy metal things I really like. So, could be
heavy metal as in music and as in rusty things.
Both, yes.
You could probably classify Ozzy Osbourne as a really old rusty heavy metal thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Much respect to Ozzy Osbourne.
No, this is funny. There's this one flea market vendor that when I go to this one flea market upstate, it's all old stuff. It's all antiques, literally antiques. Every time I walk in his booth, he's like, come, look, I brought this just for you. And it's like always some giant chunk of steel with like,
nice,
used for blacksmithing or something. And it's just like, he equates me with like heavy, rusty things. Every time I walk in his booth. And I always end up buying everything he has anyway. So, but yeah, I like rusty stuff. I just talked, I chatted a little bit on Instagram with Tom Utley. You guys know Tom Utley, King Utley?
Yeah.
He's restoring the lathe, and he showed me the bottom of the lathe like completely brand new and the rusty one. That's why he said it's a lot of work, of course. And I said, that's why I just come to love rust. I just like things that are rusty because they just appreciate them for what they are. Rust.
Yeah. Speaking of rust, clean it. This is way off topic, but you said rust several times in a row and it made me think of it. Have you ever used a product called OSFO?
No.
Okay. Anybody who works with metal and needs to get rid of surface rust, the stuff called OSFO, and it's you get it in like a gallon jug, and it turns rust, just surface rust. It turns surface rust into a black primer. You pour it on, and you just leave it there, and like 10 minutes later, you can sand it off. It's awesome. So
I've heard of that result. I just didn't know that was what it was called. I've heard.
Yeah, I used it when I restored my. I have a 1962 Vespa, And when I restored that, it was pretty rusted out after, like, the floorboards are rusted. Not rusted through, but, a lot of surface stuff. And I got a gallon of that just from a local welding shop, and I didn't really know anything about it. And they said, yeah, this will take care of the problem. And as soon as I put it on, it just turns black and kind of flakes up a little bit. And then you can just, easily sand it off, and it's gone back to bare metal. It's pretty great.
That's cool.
Obviously, if there's any pitting, you have to go back and fill that and stuff. But
that reminds me, I have to sell my scooter. I haven't even gotten it out yet this year.
I think instead of selling it, you should modify it. You should turn it into a trike, or do something. Turn it in, make it
a lamp,
a new body out of wood or something.
Oh man, well, we'll see. We'll see about that.
That would make me happy.
I just got my Vespa inspected just this morning.
Oh,
yeah. So I gotta, and then right after this, I gotta take my Vespa all the way uptown. I gotta go take a look at a job. And so
mine would not pass an inspection.
You gotta get it going.
A little too old.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think we've probably talked about what makes us happy, unless anybody else has anything they want to throw out there.
You know what makes me happy? Just one more thing is, and this sounds like I'm pandering, but it's the truth, is that this community, this like YouTube community, and how like Instagram and like all this handmade stuff, and like how all of us kind of got together as like a whole new group of friends.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I think it's really cool. And, like people that I haven't met and I may never meet, I talk to online on a regular basis as if we're old friends. And I think that's really fantastic. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Yeah. I mean, just the fact that those people provide us the opportunity to be able to do this, to be an audience, even if that's all it is, just to be a set of ears that enjoys listening to what we do or watching what we do. That's pretty amazing.
So
it's just crazy. Like I can say like some of my best friends live in New York or Georgia or in California, and I've actually only met them in person a couple times. But we know each other all so well, and I've met so many cool people doing this. Like, just living in a fun time.
Yeah,
it's amazing.
Definitely. Also, what makes me happy is the people that support us on Patreon, and that's just a segue. It's not pandering, but no, we really are. We really are grateful for them because they do make it possible for us to do this. And so I really want to say a special thank you to Luis Gonzalez, Rick Rhodes, and Jeremy White from Patreon. They're our top patrons over there, and we really appreciate you guys. And also to Joseph Mensch for a donation, a really generous donation.
Thank you, Joe.
Joseph is awesome to us, and we really appreciate it. So
means a lot.
Also want to thank Inventables for sponsoring this episode. Also awesome. Before we go, let's do the thing we did last time. What are you guys watching?
Oh, Jimmy, go.
ClickSpring is what I've been watching a couple of videos this week. ClickSpring, he's a machinist, and I think he sounds like he might have an Australian accent. I've only watched a couple of his videos just this week, but I watched some prior to this week because I was just getting ready for this conversation. And he is an amazing craftsman. He makes clocks and watches. And just if you want to learn how to machine stuff from metal and brass, he's amazing. I mean, I watched a couple of his videos in the last couple of days, and I got a tremendous amount of visual knowledge. I got to go make it practical knowledge, but it's just amazing. He's incredible, and he presents in such a clean, easy way, non-pretentious. ClickSpring, check him out.
Awesome. David, what about you?
Completely unrelated to anything that we do is Jack's Films on YouTube. This guy makes almost daily videos, and I've stolen some ideas from his show and put them in my show. He's just makes me laugh every single day, and I think laughing is pretty important, and just being happy in general is pretty important. So I try to find things that are fun and make me laugh. So Jack's Films on YouTube.
Awesome.
Cool.
So I got two things that I've seen in the last couple of days that are awesome. I hope everybody knows Izzy Swan, but Izzy followed the lawn mowing thing and made his own mower out of a drill. And so if you're listening and you have not seen that video, go watch it right now. It's awesome. The other thing I saw that was really cool is, and I don't know who did this. I'll have to find it. I don't know where it came from, but it's a laser etching video where this some new laser etching machine, and it's like a shotgun of laser. And so it's so hard to explain. It's this super intricate design put on this giant board, and this laser is just like blasting these details all over the place. It's crazy. And a couple minutes into it, you're just like, what is happening right now? Because it's like literally sounds like a shotgun going off over and over and over, and details are just showing up on this board. So it's really cool. But I don't really know much about it otherwise, so I'll have to put that in the show notes.
Cool.
Yeah, so that'll probably do it for us this week. Where can we find out about everybody? David?
You can find me at drunkenwoodworker.com. And quickly, I just want to say that I need to apologize to a bunch of people who are expecting the weekly wrap-up. I'm doing a little break, and I'm trying to figure out how to kind of redefine the show and do some new things with it. So I'm taking a break. I know I'm not sure when I'll be back, but I'll definitely be back, and it's going to be bigger and better than ever. So drunkenwoodworker.com.
Nice.
Cool. JimmyDiresta.com. My store is up. And then I just want to give a plug to my nephew, Matthew Diresta.
What's up, buddy?
Take a look at Matt. And Matt's actually got he's got some good sponsors coming up. And he's actually going to I think he's getting one of those machines that we're keep talking about.
You've been doing some really good videos lately. Really digging them. Yeah.
So take a look at Matt Diresta, my nephew, not my brother and not my son, my nephew. Everyone's confused about that one.
Cool. And all my stuff is at iliketomakestuff.com, except for those new videos that I just did, and they're on the Make Magazine channel. Go check those out.
Right
and yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening, guys. See you next time.
Thank you.
Later.
Peace.